They say every day is for the thief, one day for the owner of the house. But ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission, has reversed the role. It is now every day for the owner of the house. If you're involved in bribery, over-invoicing, or any shady deal, the day of reckoning has come. ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission, is watching you. If you're reported for any corrupt practice, you'll be investigated, prosecuted, and punished. Corruption is harmful to our nation. Join the campaign against it by reporting any corrupt practice to ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission.
Let we join hands with ICPC, make them better.
Let's make Nigeria great again.
ICPC, they want to.
I want hand for corruption.
Break the chain of corruption now. Don't give, don't take. This message is brought to you by ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission.
Hello and welcome to yet another exciting edition of Corruption Must Go, ICPC's weekly television program. I'm your host, Hawa Garba. Today on the program, we shall be looking at the fight against corruption vis-a-vis Nigerians' ratings on the Corruption Perception Index by the global anti-corruption watchdog, the Transparency International, TI, and if such ratings are true reflections of the country's anti-corruption drive. First, let us join Ruth Awodi for anti-corruption stories.
Welcome to this segment on anti-corruption stories. I am Ruth Awodi. ICPC has moved to seize plots of land and duplexes, which values have been put at over 264 million naira from 3 civil servants working in the Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs. The properties, which are owned by Poloma Kabiru Nuhu, Mankset Longil Dixon, and Daniel Oba, currently under investigation by the Commission, include 19 plots of land, 10 hectares of farmland, and 2 duplexes spread around Abuja and 3 towns in Rivers State. The 10 hectares of farmland located in Kuje, Abuja, was allegedly acquired through corrupt acts by Nuhu, a principal accountant with the ministry. The move to seize the properties follows an investigation by the Commission of the assets of Nuhu, Dixon and Oba, all staff of the Niger Delta Affairs Ministry, which has established that the trio allegedly have assets whose values are well above their legitimate earnings and incomes. ICPC, relying on Section 48, subsection 2 of the Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Act 2000, which gives it the power of seizure of assets obtained by individuals through corrupt means, will seize 15 plots of land, all located in Gwagwalada, Abuja, from Nuhu. Nuhu will also temporarily lose ownership of 10 hectares of farmland valued at 50 million naira and an uncompleted duplex valued at 90 million naira at Apo Estate, Abuja, to the Commission. On his part, Oba, a principal accountant in the Finance and Accounts Department of the same ministry, will also lose temporary ownership of a 60 million naira valued 4-bedroom duplex located in Kasana, Abuja, and 3 plots of land with a collective value of 64.5 million naira located in Abendoni, Obiakpo, and Port Harcourt, Rivers State. While the third suspect, Dixon, will lose ownership of a plot of land valued at 7 million naira located at Kubwa, a suburb of Abuja. In the trial involving a former Inspector General of Police, Sunday Ehindaro, over his alleged complicity in the mismanagement of police money, a witness of ICPC, Mr. Olayinka Ayegbayo, FSI, has told the court that it was criminal for the accused to have treated public funds as his personal money. The witness gave the testimony before Honorable Justice S.C. Origi of the Federal Capital Territory High Court 7, sitting in Apo, Abuja, when he was being cross-examined by counsel to the ex-IGP, Alex Izion SAN. The former police boss is standing trial alongside an ex-commissioner of police in charge of budget at the force headquarters, John Obaniyi, for converting the sum of 16,412,315 naira police money to private use. The accused persons were said to have criminally conspired to divert the said sum, which was the interest generated on the sum of 557,995,065 naira released to the police by the Bayelsa State government, and which they had placed in 2 fixed deposit accounts at Wema Bank and Intercontinental Bank PLC in July 2006. The said money was appropriated and released by the Bayelsa State government to the police force at the time to enable it purchase arms, ammunition, and riot control equipment for proper policing of the state. The defendant's counsel, Alex Izion SAN and SA Odariko, had argued that the principal sum was a donation whereby management could not strictly follow the guidelines for handling official money. However, the ICPC witness disagreed and insisted that the money was not a donation, but it was a release for a specific procurement of operational equipment for the Bayelsa State Police Command, which must be properly accounted for. Chairman of ICPC, Professor Bolaji Owasaonye, has called on the federal government to grant Anti-Corruption and Transparency Units, ACTUs, autonomy to aid the fight against corruption in Nigeria. ACTUs, which are domiciled in government ministries, departments and agencies, MDAs, are backed by a government white paper to help ICPC fight corruption in MDAs. Owasaonye, while inaugurating the reconstituted ACTU of the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, SGF, recently urged Mr. Boss Mustafa to prevail on the head of Civil Service of the Federation to allow ACTU to function as a unit with full autonomy as stipulated by the government circulars of 2001 and 2016. The chairman, who was represented by the Director, Corruption Monitoring and Evaluation Department, Mr. Abia Udofia, at the event also urged the new leadership of the unit to live above board. He added that it became necessary to seek the partnership of the SGF in resolving this problem, as the OHCSF, in a circular which was issued on 11th March 2014, subsumed the ACTU under the Special Duties Department, thereby breaching the confidentiality of information and reports expected to exist between ACTUs, their CEOs, and ICPC.
The autonomous status of the unit is not meant to displace or anyway, I must emphasize this, displace or challenge the authority of management. Rather, it is to assist in instilling transparent and accountable systems and organizations.
Earlier in his welcome address, the Permanent Secretary General Services Office, Mr. Olusegun Adekunle, lauded the monumental works of ICPC while referencing the training the Commission carried out on corruption risk assessment for heads of anti-corruption agencies in African Union countries. He also reiterated the resolution of the President Muhammadu Buhari-led administration to making the Anti-Corruption Academy of Nigeria, ACAN, the training arm of ICPC, a renowned institute of learning. He finally gave assurance of his support and that of the SGF and all other entities that make up the office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation.
As you are all aware, one of the cardinal objectives of this administration is to fight corruption and entrench transparency and accountability in governance. You are all therefore advised to ensure strict adherence to public service rules, financial regulations, Public Procurement Act, and other relevant guidelines that promote probity and accountability in the public service. Public officers are expected to live above board and to act with integrity and caution while discharging their responsibilities.
That will be all on this segment. Corruption Must Go continues with Hawa. Stay with us.
Corruption not in my country.
Now, yeah.
Yes, Oga.
Okay.
Where I go come find 300 naira change?
I better try look for change now. Don't they do business? Hey, Timmy. I did, bro. I be. I beg, give me 200 naira. Make I take sort out this guy. If let's say no get change.
Take it, give us.
I said 200.
Give her 100 naira.
Yeah.
Okay, I agree to pay 200 naira.
How much you think they carry people from that place where you carry the chair?
Oga.
Why they touch me?
Now 100 naira. He agreed to pay.
Because that was what you said was the fair. Why you not go pay you? Why you they extort your customer? You see this corruption, what would they hear for news? They see for people everywhere. Now be this so. This is corruption, not in our country.
Stop corruption now.
Welcome back. Corruption has been identified as an impediment and challenge to Nigeria's quest for development. In fact, about 2 decades ago, the country was rated the second most corrupt in the world. But then, what have successive governments done to improve on this situation?
Starting from around 1993-94, TI has done an excellent job of bringing to the front burner the issue of corruption. If you recall, in the days that TI started, that was when it was in the height of the human rights movement, where everybody was talking about human rights being the issue, but some of us thought that people's rights were being abused because they were exposing corruption. So I think as a way of highlighting and drawing attention to the problem, it has been excellent. However, TI tells you you stink, but they cannot tell you why you stink. And even when you finish washing, the smell still lingers around you for so long, you don't know whether your washing was sufficient or not sufficient. So I think we should understand the tool, the Corruption Perceptions Index, for what it is. It is a perceptions index. And so long as we treat it as such, I think it is a great tool for drawing our attention to the problem. However, what I think a country like Nigeria should be moving to is what we have been advocating is a corruption risk index, where you are able to drill down and say Nigeria is a high risk country for corruption. Why? And you can split it, whether it's the private sector, the public sector, or society. And you drill down even in the public sector. What makes it risky? Is it public procurement? Is it this other area? If you're able to drill down, you'll be able to go and isolate the particular reason. It means you can design reforms. And when you have fixed it, it should be gone. Once you have fixed it, it's fixed. And you should be able to come back and say, we have made progress in the fight against corruption. One of those measures is in having dedicated anti-corruption institutions. So yes, we had Code of Conduct Bureau, we had Code of Conduct Tribunal, but we added the ICPC to it. I remember that came in 2000, 2001. Then we had the EFCC, we had the NFIU, we had quite a number of institutions established specifically to deal with the issue of corruption. That's number one. Number two, there has been the attempt to sanction and enforce against those who have been very corrupt in dealing in public resources in ways that were illegal. But because with the best of intentions, the state is not able to monitor effectively right across, and it's also was unable to sanction all the way across, it ended up appearing, number one, like a witch hunt, and number two, like a political tool. That anti-corruption became the tool for disciplining your opponents. And we had been arguing that you really need to deal with the issue of prevention. So successive governments, yes, they've put quite a few things in place, especially in the last 5 to 10 years. When we come to the issue of the BVN, we look at the Treasury single account, we look at some of those things that start to introduce preventive measures. We've started to approach those things, but they haven't gone far enough. Because, for instance, I think if for your budget defense, you had to prove that your MDA was not a net cash sink, that if we put money in it, it vanishes. If you had to prove that when we put money in it, it goes towards the impact and the intended impact, and that's why you get the next budget item, I think chief executives will become the anti-corruption officers. But we have not used the power of the Treasury in the way we could to deploy it to reduce corruption in Nigeria. So I think it's been a little difficult to keep the fight against corruption going sufficiently. If a people are substantially corrupt, their leadership will be corrupt, because the leadership emerged from the people. And if the leaders share the same values as the people, they're not going to be holier than the people. So it is very important that the fight against corruption is located within the citizenship and their associations, their bodies, their organizations. Because if that ownership is there, government come, government go, the people determine that agenda and insist on what they would like to see. But today, the people are bystanders, and they're watching a boxing match between the president, who says he's fighting corruption, and those who are his opponents, who say it's not about fighting corruption, it's only about the economy. I don't know how you can have one without the other, but anyway, so people are just bystanders watching and taking sides, rather than seeing that it's their future that is being determined by the fight that is going on. So I think this is a big role for citizens. However, you have to raise the critical consciousness of citizens to the extent that they understand the issues enough to participate in what's going on.
Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome.
You are still watching Corruption Must Go. In spite of these efforts, Nigeria still ranks 144 on the latest Corruption Perception Index. Is this ranking a true reflection of corruption perception in the country? Our camera lens caught up with some Nigerians, and this is what they have to say.
Kudos to this administration. They have tried to, curtail the scourge of corruption in Nigeria. But from the look of things, when you look at it down to even an average man walking on the streets, you cannot say corruption has been, addressed thoroughly in Nigeria, especially when you start from the leadership down to the grassroots. The issue of corruption is still very, very thick in our system in Nigeria. So it will take vigorous implementation of certain laws to curb the scourge of corruption in Nigeria. So I will say, by and large, the recent report is still a perfect reflection of what we have in Nigeria.
Okay, what other measures do you think can be put in place to improve this rating?
I think the best measure is still to, if there is a way we can revamp first the security operatives and the security system we have in this country, because the major challenge we even have in my own perspective is that the said security operatives that are supposed to be fighting this scourge of corruption are even empowering the tool of corruption in Nigeria. So if we can revamp that system, you understand, then furthermore create more stringent laws to help curb the system, the scourge of corruption.
Well, in Nigeria, before now, I think the international community has actually come up with a database that we were among the top corrupt countries in the world. That is late 90s. But today, the community has also shown us that we have actually made an improvement. But as a Nigerian, what I want to see is not about the paperwork, it's not about words, but it's actions we want to see than hearing. I think what I want to state the government up is that the government of the day should be able to fight against corruption even in-house. I actually have this in mind, that if the president can use himself as an example or his cabinet member as an example, it will actually help us. It will actually help us to know that we are actually improving. We are not just working on database, but we are working by facts. I think that's the little I have to say now, that Nigerians should come out and support corruption fight, and the government should give the masses when we are crying that things are wrong, the government should know, and the government should be able to see why the people are crying, the need why they are crying, and should be able to see how they solve the problem. Not going to be looking at being sentimental. This is my political party member. This is from my state. This is my tribal person. This is my religious person. We are talking about Nigerians. Wherever you are coming from, if you are corrupt, you should be charged.
What are those measures do you think can be put in place to make this fight against corruption a reality?
You see, when we take away sentiments, religious sentiments, political sentiments, in dealing with corrupt issues, corrupt persons, corrupt institutions, for me, we will make progress. Mind you, this religion and sentiments has really dragged this nation 100 years backward. And until we learn to deal with the issue of religion, take away religion from national issues, we will not make progress. And the fight against corruption can only make meaningful progress when we take away religious sentiments, political sentiments.
From the responses and opinions expressed by Nigerians, you will agree with me that the latest corruption rating by TI may not be a true reflection of the level of corruption in the country, but it should serve as a spur for us to do more to rid our country of this debilitating scourge. That's our package for today. See you again next week. Bye for now.